Well, howdy, everybody. Gather around the old campfire, folks, 'cause I got a tale for you. This here's a story about the original con men of the frontier, the snake oil salesman, who sold bottles of snake oil. 'Tis the good old days where men were men, horses were horses, and medicine? Well, medicine was something else entirely. Way before the FDA showed up with their clipboards and fancy regulations, folks were out there slinging potions, powders, and elixirs faster than a jackrabbit on a hot skillet. And let me tell you, some of that medicine would knock your boots clean off. So cinch up your saddle, 'cause we're riding straight into the weird, wild world of frontier medicine. Now let's start from the beginning. These days, when folks say snake oil, they mean something fake, a load of hooey at best. But originally, snake oil was real, and actual oil gotten from snakes. You see, in the 1800s, Chinese railroad workers brought over a remedy made from Chinese water snakes. They used the oil as a balm for sore muscles, and as it turned out, it did have some anti-inflammatory properties. Soon, the slick-tongued hucksters in America caught wind of it and said, well, dang, why stop at snakes? So pretty soon they were bottling up any old mess they could stir together. They were mixing mineral oil, turpentine, chili powder, opium, and Lord knows what, and selling it off the back of a wagon like it was a miracle cure. Some even made it look like it was the second coming of Jesus. And the kicker, half the time there weren't even any snake fangs or scales, or even a rattler's tail in the mix. Only hot pepper juice and a bunch of lies. One feller even called himself the Rattlesnake King, and he made a fortune slicing open snakes in front of crowds and pretending to bottle the oil fresh. This feller, named Clark Stanley, got himself involved with the government when they tested his so-called snake oil. It turned out it was only mineral oil with a sprinkle of beef fat and peppers. No snake, no magic, no nothing. Only a whole heap of baloney. Now don't go thinking these fellers were just standing on a box and mumbling. Oh no, partner. Snake oil salesmen were part doctor, part preacher, part magician, and all con artists. They rolled into town like they owned the place, and by the time they left, half the townsfolk was broke, drunk on false hope, and burping up chili pepper ointments. So picture this. A painted wagon brighter than a carnival parade rolls down Main Street. The sides are plastered with hand-painted promises, cures all known ills, from baldness to brain fever. Recommended by Indian chiefs and European doctors. The driver's cracking a whip, the fiddler's playing a jig, and some poor feller in the back is all dressed up like a native healer for extra authenticity. Then, when the wagon stopped, oh boy, that's when the real theater began. These quacks knew the first rule of selling. You gotta draw a crowd. So they start with music, hitting the banjos, fiddles, sometimes even a brass band if they were flush with cash. Then came the warm-up acts, jugglers tossing knives, fire breathers spitting kerosene flames into the dusk, contortionists twisting like rattlesnakes. Heck, some even brought along a dancing bear or two. So, by the time the doctor himself stepped forward, usually a mustachioed feller wearing a long coat and a stovepipe hat, the whole town was already buzzing. And let me tell you, these fellers could talk. They had the gift of gab so slick you could grease wagon wheels with it. They spoke louder than a preacher on Easter Sunday, spinning tales about how their elixir had healed Civil War heroes, cured railroad workers of scurvy, and even brought one poor farmer's mule back from the jaws of death. And that mule story, by the way, got told in more towns than the Bible itself. But here's where the real trickery came in. They used shills, plants in the crowd. One old woman would limp up front, all moaning about her rheumatism. The salesman would dab some tonic on her knees, whisper a few words, and then shout, "Stand up, sister!" And wouldn't you know it, she'd leap up like a jackrabbit, suddenly healed. The crowd went wild, hats flying in the air, folks swearing they'd seen a miracle. course, that woman was paid to limp, just like the next feller who was paid to cough like he was dying until a spoonful of syrup made him right as rain. The show never stopped there. Some salesmen hired whole troops, singers, comedians, actors performing skits. Others hawked side products like miracle soaps, tonics for baldness, or powders guaranteed to turn scrawny boys into muscle-bound men. It was half medical clinic, half circus, and half Sunday revival. And if you're paying attention and wondering how three halves make a whole, well, that's snake oil math for you. And the bottles themselves always sold with urgency. The salesman would shout, "Tonight only. Supply is limited. The good doctor's riding on out at dawn. And when he does, this miracle cure rides out with him." And sure enough, town folks scrambled to empty their pockets, handing over hard-earned dollars for a bottle that was half turpentine and half whiskey. By morning, the wagon was gone, the bottles were empty, and the only thing cured was the salesman's thirst for money. And yet, by the time the tonic wore off and the side effects kicked in, the snake oil feller was 2 towns over, doing the same show all over again. Now here's where things get real spicy, literally and figuratively. Folks always ask, "Hey doc, what's in that miracle elixir?" And let me tell you, the answer was usually a cocktail that knocked the hair off a bison. The most common ingredient? You guessed it, alcohol. Not your mild Sunday communion wine either. We're talking 30%, 40%, sometimes more, and enough to light your lantern in a pinch. Why? Because nothing makes you feel healthier quicker than a good old buzz. A farmer takes a swig, his back pain don't hurt as much, and he swears the medicine's working. Of course, he's just tipsy. Then came the spices, a heaping spoonful of cayenne pepper, ginger, or mustard seed. Why? 'Cause it burned. And burning meant it was working. And if your throat felt like a prairie fire, you figured that oil was burning the sickness clean out of you. So what about the high-class bottles? Partner, that's where things got wild. Some were packed with morphine and laudanum, powerful opiates that send you flying higher than a hawk. Cough syrup, pain cure, sleep aid. It all worked real fast until suddenly it didn't. Once the bottle dried up, you weren't just sick again, you were hooked. Then came the showstoppers, cocaine tonics. There was Vin Mariani, the cocaine-infused French wine, loved by everyone from stage performers to European royals. Pope Leo XIII even carried a flask in his robes, bless his heart. He said it gave him strength, which is polite talk for wired as a telegraph pole in a lightning storm. But America wasn't going to be outdone. Over here, we had cocaine toothache drops. For kids, mind you. Picture a mother dabbing pure cocaine on her toddler's gums and smiling while the baby coos, eyes bugging like a jackrabbit. We had cocaine throat lozenges, guaranteed to cure sore throats, making sure you couldn't feel your throat at all. And of course, cocaine chewing gum, the frontier's answer to Star Puffs. Other bottles were sneakier. Radium water. Yep, glowing radioactive water sold as a health tonic. Patient liver pills that were half mercury. Elixirs loaded with chloroform. If it could numb you, shock you, or knock you flat, somebody slapped a label on it and called it medicine. And don't forget about the exotic branding. Bottles often had names like Dr. Marvel's Elixir of Life or Kickapoo Indian Sagwa. Folks figured if it had a Native American or foreign-sounding name, it must be authentic. Truth is, most of these remedies were mixed up in basements by men who couldn't spell chemistry if you spotted them half the letters. But here's the real kicker. It wasn't all fake. Some of it actually worked. Pain really was dull. Fevers did drop, headaches eased. But not cause illness was cured. No, sir. It was cause you were blasted out of your skull on opiates, booze, or cocaine. I'll tell you what, there's just something surreal about a world where you could walk into a general store and buy a jar labeled Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. which, by the way, was mostly morphine. It was made for teething babies. Bless their tiny little hearts. They were marketed as mother's best friend because the syrup was aimed square at patients dealing with screaming, teething babies. And the morphine in it was enough to put a full-grown cowpoke on his back, let alone a 6-month-old. Those poor babies weren't soothed. They were sedated harder than a drunk cowboy on payday. Sure, they stopped crying, but only 'cause they were too busy napping in morphine dreamland. And it didn't stop there. Bayer, you know, the aspirin folks, introduced heroin cough syrup. Yeah, they swore it was less addictive than morphine. Turns out, it was more addictive. Parents dosed their kids for the sniffles, and pretty soon entire families were riding the dragon before anyone even knew what addiction was. Soldiers chewed cocaine gum on long marches. Performers took cocaine drops to sing louder and longer. Factory workers sipped on tonics to keep swinging hammers all day without keeling over. Folks thought they'd found fuel for the human body, like gasoline for the soul. And the advertisements? Oh, they were slicker than a greased hog. Colorful posters showed happy babies sleeping peacefully, doctors in white coats smiling, testimonials from satisfied customers, though most of whom were made up. Some ads even claimed these tonics were endorsed by kings, presidents, or great inventors. Whether true or not, it just didn't matter. The image sold the bottle. Now just imagine walking into a frontier general store. On one shelf, whiskey. On another, canned bean. And right in the middle, bottles of morphine syrup for babies, cocaine gum for dad, and laudanum for mom's headaches. No warnings. No prescriptions, no shame. It was all legal. The scary part, folks genuinely believed they were being modern, taking advantage of the newest science. Progress, they called it. Nobody realized the price of that progress was addiction, organ damage, and families wasting away while believing they were getting better. So picture it, a frontier family sitting around the table. Dad's chewing cocaine gum. Mom's nodding off on laudanum. And the baby's out cold on morphine syrup. And the salesman, he's already 3 towns away, laughing all the way to the bank. Of course, eventually, the government finally got wise to the nonsense. In 1906, they passed the Pure Food and Drug Act, which in essence said, hey, maybe you ought to label what's actually in those bottles. And let me tell you, folks weren't too pleased when they found out their all-natural headache tonic was really 30% alcohol and probably gave them a morphine addiction. This act marked the beginning of the end for the snake oil salesman. The traveling medicine shows started dying off. Folks got smart, science showed up, and doctors, well, they stopped wearing cowboy hats and pushing cocaine gum, mostly. Now don't get me wrong, there's really something mighty nostalgic about them old tonic bottles. Today, they're collector's items, displayed on shelves like trophies from a time when hope came in a glass bottle. And side effects included seeing God. Were the snake oil salesmen scoundrels? Well, sure, but dang it, they were entertaining scoundrels. They remind us of a time when the frontier was still wild and a silver tongue could sell chili pepper grease as a miracle cure. So next time someone tries to sell you a magic detox tea or miracle crystals, remember, we've been falling for snake oil since the wagon wheels rolled west. Only difference now, it comes in a TikTok ad instead of a whiskey bottle. Well, thanks for watching, partners. If you like this here video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment about the weirdest remedy your grandma ever gave you. Till next time, ride safe, shoot straight, don't chew no cocaine gum.